British troops must be prepared to face a renewed threat from Russia. That's the message of the new head of the British Army. Now, the new head of the British Army has written to troops telling them that they need to be prepared to fight in Europe once again. General Sir Patrick Sanders, who started the job last week, said that Russia's invasion of Ukraine showed the need for the UK and its allies to have the capability to defeat Russia. Now, those comments were made in a letter to the Army and staff, and that copy of that letter has been obtained by our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale, who joins me now. Can we start with the nature, the tone, the content? What strikes you?
Well, I think it's not surprising that the head of the army, the new head of the army, wants to make a mark in the first week of his job. Not surprising he mentions Russia, given its invasion of Ukraine. But what is surprising is the focus on Russia and the words he used, very strong, very blunt, making clear that the army's raison d'etre now, under his command, is to be ready to fight Russia in Europe if necessary. And this is the key quote here. There is now a burning imperative to forge an army capable of fighting alongside our allies and defeating Russia in battle. These aren't careful diplomatic words, words easy for soldiers to understand, but also words for us, because this letter was always going to be leaked to a wider audience.
So viewers tonight watching this, Jonathan, seeing those words, might well come to the view that that is a hint that British troops could find themselves fighting, for example, in Ukraine. Is that right?
That is not what is going to happen. Politicians have been clear, British troops will not be deployed to Ukraine. That said, what we have seen is more British troops being deployed to NATO's eastern flank. Those are the countries in red. So there are 2,000 British troops currently in Estonia, nearly 1,000 in Poland, and they're going to have a NATO summit where they're going to announce probably hundreds more being deployed. Now, this comes at a time when there are questions about the size of the British Army. At its smallest in centuries, just over 73,500 troops. And his predecessor, Patrick Sanders, argued for some of those cuts to be reversed. Now, he doesn't explicitly mention this, but clearly it is in his mind when he wrote this letter. OK, interesting, Jonathan. Thanks very much. Jonathan Beale there, our defence correspondent. Let's stay with the conflict in Ukraine, because some of those injured in the fighting are now recovering overseas, and the BBC has met some of the younger victims who were injured in the early days of the conflict, and my colleague Vera Davis has been following some of their stories.
A
hospital in a foreign land isn't where Masha would have wanted to celebrate her 16th birthday. She's far from home, with only her grandmother for company. When we first met Masha 3 months ago, she was fighting for her life in Zaporizhia's children's hospital. Her right leg blown off by a Russian shell, and with other extensive injuries.
She's much better now. She refused to eat at all back then. We were scared for her life. She's had 24 surgeries so far.
Diana was in the same hospital ward as Masha and was also evacuated to Germany. The 13-year-old had life-threatening wounds, shrapnel lodged in her brain and other terrible injuries. Her recovery will be long and difficult. The Russian shell that maimed Diana killed her older sister Natasha and her 4-year-old niece Dominika. As the only surviving child, the person Diana wants most by her side is her dad, Vladimir. They speak every day on the phone.
I'm glad to see my dad, but I wish I talked to him like we're talking with you now.
In the immediate aftermath of the attack, Vladimir was a broken man. It was heartbreaking to see him imploring God, "Why did you bring this upon me?" Vladimir still looks to God for solace and answers, but stuck here in western Ukraine isn't where he needs to be. Current state of emergency rules here in Ukraine mean that as a man of fighting age, he can't travel. But he's clearly in no fit state to pick up a gun. So while he waits, he comes here to church every day and prays for those he's lost.
If
they give me that permit, I'm definitely going to go. I cannot be without them. I'm without my family. I keep thinking about them.
With Diana due to undergo another brain operation this week, Vladimir lobbied President Zelensky directly for permission to travel. And tonight, at the 11th hour, his prayers were quite literally answered. His daughter is still seriously ill, but at least her father will now be by her side. Wira Davis, BBC News, Ukraine.
The Ukrainian government says more than 1,000 unexploded bombs and mines are being found every day in areas they've taken back from the Russians. They are scattered across a stretch of land bigger than the whole of the UK, but there are only 300 qualified technicians available to clear them, and proper equipment is in short supply. Lucy Watson reports from outside Kiev.
You're allowed to breathe heavily when you're searching for Russian landmines. When you're clawing at the earth to find unexploded weapons. And scouring enemy trenches for what they chose to leave.
We just found a booster from an artillery shell. Every munition, every mine we pull out of the ground is, regardless, a life saved.
CJ was in the British Army for 7 years and has come to help Ukraine's National Police bomb disposal team. Their work is extensive, but their tools basic. We don't
really have any kit to do our job. That's the problem. You've probably seen some of the guys that don't have body armour, they don't have helmets. Some of them don't even have boots. There's too much to manage. I mean, there's only 300 of us across the country.
And 60 of them are responsible for clearing the area around Kyiv, where Russian troops left their mark.
These dugouts were Russian fighting positions, and we've been told that anywhere in this area there could be booby traps or mines.
Despite the dangers, this work has to be done.
It's down to us whether farming can continue, whether people can get back to work, whether hospitals and schools can reopen, and normal life can resume. Of course, me and my whole team are at risk, but we understand that risk.
What they've recovered in this region alone already is staggering.
Around 85,000 unexploded devices have been found by our unit. In playgrounds, fields, streets and inside homes.
In amongst their haul are cluster bombs, which were banned internationally 4 years ago. Then they took us to see what they do with what they find, but kept us at a safe distance.
When one of these explosions goes off, the shockwaves go right through your body, and these kinds of devices are what are being left behind to destroy lives and maim civilians.
The total destruction of these weapons means they can harm no more. Lucy Watson, ITV News in the Kyiv region, Ukraine.